problem is.
Okay. Well, I'm going to just talk about some upcoming things here at the library before I turn things over to Ellen and shut my mouth. Um, okay, so just a couple things that are coming up. Tomorrow night we have a really wonderful concert by a local group, the Knockabouts. They're a Celtic group and just a wonderful group, musical group, and that is going to be tomorrow night starting at 6:30 in the community room. And then coming up next week, we have a wonderful reader, October 22nd. I mean, September 22nd. Okay, someone is making noise and I have to mute. There we go. Okay. Yeah, we have Matt Gavin Frank on September 22nd, this coming Monday, 6:30 p.m. in the community room. He's going to be reading from his latest book, Submersed. We just had a wonderful workshop with him last night here at the library, and next week he's going to be reading and signing books. So hopefully you all can come and support Matt and really his book is really wonderful. So, and then just to give you a preview of things that are coming up next month, um, we have um, we have some really wonderful movies that are going to be shown. We have the movie American Fiction, which is based on Percival Everett's novel Erasure, and that's on Monday, October 6th. It starts at 5 p.m. And then we have in honor of Halloween that month, we're doing a documentary called Birth of the Living Dead: The Making of Night of the Living Dead. Still one of my favorite movies. I don't know how you feel about it, but it's still one of my favorites. And then we are doing Dinner and a Movie at the end of the month on October 29th with the movie Sinners, which was really popular this summer. And it's still, in my book, one of the best films of the year. Um, and then we have some great readers that are coming up as well in October. On Tuesday, October 7th, we have a really wonderful poet and writer, Thomas Lynch, who is going to be promoting his debut novel. He's written so many books, but this is the first novel that he's written. It's called No Prisoners. And if you've never seen Tom read, you really should do yourself a favor and come and see him because he's so entertaining and wonderful. And that's Tuesday, October 7th, 6:30 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. We do have a Northwards and Music show coming up on Wednesday, October 8th, from 6:30 p.m. to 8 p.m. in the community room. And our special guest, musical guest for that show is going to be Brian Wallen from the Make Believe Spurs. And then I'm going to just talk about one more thing, and that is a friend-raiser that we're doing on Tuesday, October 14th from 6 to 8 p.m. It's going to be a local historian and cinephile Dan Reedholm. And he's going to be doing a presentation that he has titled Preminger Directs Marquette. This year is the 120th birthday of Otto Preminger, the director of Anatomy of a Murder. And so Dan is going to be talking about Preminger, his career, but also the time he spent here in Marquette filming Anatomy of Murder. And I don't think that a lot of people know this, but Preminger actually returned to the area after he filmed Anatomy of a Murder to do some other filming here as well. So I think it's going to be really wonderful. And that is a friend-raiser event, which means that you have to pay $5 for a ticket. There are 75 tickets. But all of that money that we raise for those friend-raisers goes right back into programming. And right now, when funding is a little bit questionable for certain organizations, it's always good to try to support the library as much as we can. So anyway, that's what we have coming up. So I'm going to now turn things over to Ellen here, and I've been looking forward to this presentation ever since she did her last presentation because I just love Ellen's presentations. So please give a warm Peter White welcome to Ellen Longsworth.
Thank you very much, Marty, and thank you for all of you who've taken the time to spend some time with us this evening. The catalyst for this talk, by the way, has to do primarily with the fact that we're in Marquette, and I thought that something that revolved around the wider periphery of Marquette, and we'll get back to Marquette with a particular object in a little bit, would just might be kind of fun. So, on the night of October 8th, 1871, fire engulfed Chicago, and over 100,000 people were left homeless. Countless businesses, as well as homes, of course, were destroyed. We're quite sure it wasn't Mrs. O'Leary's cow, but some other person who ventured into her barn looking for a beer and kicked over a lantern. That's the latest, if you're all interested in the cause for this enormous fire that was not extinguished for the next 3 days. And why I begin with this is not only because Chicago is relatively close to us, but because after 2 or 3 years, when persons were building Chicago back as it once appeared before the fire, there came, and here's another look after the fire, there came upon the scene a couple of architects who were interested in rebuilding Chicago as well as other places using modern technology. And the first in our discussion here is William LeBaron Jenney, who was, as you can see, born in Fairhaven, Connecticut. And for those of you who might be watching from the East Coast, he attended Phillips Andover Academy, which was and still is quite an exclusive educational venue. And from there, going to Harvard, he then ended up in Paris. And this is key to this conversation, because at the École Centrale Paris, he learned the latest iron construction techniques. And he returned to, here's someone I need to admit, he returned to the United States in 1861. He was instrumental in designing fortifications for the North in the Civil War. But now, to our point here, in 1867, he moved to Chicago. And a few years later, he designed this building, the home insurance building, as you can see, which is the first skyscraper. Now, LeBaron Jenney is not usually credited with this first. Louis Sullivan is given the credit for the first skyscraper, but that's simply not the case. This building is of steel construction with a terracotta, you could say, coating, exterior coating. And terracotta is not terribly heavy. It's a stone that is a lot lighter than granite or manufactured concrete. And he created a work which clearly, as you'll see, set the standard for subsequent such buildings. Now, I was asked in an interview yesterday, what is a skyscraper? And I've thought of that subsequently, and perhaps some of you have your own answer to that, but it's not just a tall building. Now, this building was constructed originally to rise 10 stories, and you can count them yourselves, and then subsequently 2 other stories were added. But my point is getting back to what is a skyscraper? It's not just a tall building. The Capitol building in Washington is a tall building, but it's a dome. It's not a skyscraper, obviously. But a skyscraper, by definition, um, gives the observer a clear understanding of the verticality of the structure. And that might seem like an obvious thing to say, but what I mean by that is the doors, the windows, whether arched or squared, repeat a rhythm which takes you from one story to the next, to the next, to the next. And here, of course, these stories are designated by larger and smaller horizontals. He was also responsible Jenny was also responsible for the first fireproof construction. And this is his second later two building. And as you can see, it's still with us here in Chicago. And this means that he used not only steel construction for the exterior, and to create the outlines of the building altogether, but he used iron and terracotta flooring and partitions because of the fear of yet another fire engulfing such a building. And here we see it. It's a less modern photograph, but you can see here that he's employing the same aesthetic in creating this building. It's not so very tall, but we see the repetition of windows, and you can't see the ground floor, but doors as well. Any questions or comments? Oh, I almost forgot something. I am so sorry. This is something that I mentioned when I was interviewed yesterday. So let's go back to the home insurance building, because this is a hoot. Whether this is real or not, according to a popular story, when LeBaron Jenny was clearly thinking about how to build a large building out of materials that had not been used by any means before, although steel was under production in the 1880s and a little before that, as I'm sure you know. But he came in the house, and his wife was reading a book, big book, and she ran to see him, and she put her book on a bird cage. They had some birds. And he came back and he said, whoa, and slammed the book down several times on the bird cage, and the bird cage didn't move. And that is, the bird cage was not toppled by the the size of the tome. And he said, well, then there's no reason why a steel building shouldn't support enormous weight. So cute, but certainly apocryphal. Okay, let's move on. Henry Hobson Richardson figures into this conversation not as clearly, I guess you could say, as LeBaron Jenny, He was an architect who was primarily interested in the revival of Romanesque styles, and he is known for his so-called Richardsonian Romanesque. His masterpiece, as it has been decided, is the Trinity Church in Boston. However, what you see here is a massing of forms and a relationship of forms from one floor to the next, which he applied then to what he said himself was his favorite design, the Marshall Field wholesale store, unfortunately also demolished. Now here, although it is not a terribly high building, tall building, it follows what we saw in Barron's home insurance building of the sequence of openings, vertical openings, rectangular and then arched, up to a series of rectangles which occupy the upper story, as you can well see. And this design, although it's of masonry with iron embedded in the masonry, not steel, but iron, became a very important model for those who followed on the footsteps of Richardson. And as a matter of fact, Sullivan was one of those architects, a major player here, as we'll see, who was influenced by this very design. And here he is. He was an architect who was trained with Jenny. He worked with Jenny, LeBaron Jenny. And he, as I said, was influenced by the Marshall Field wholesale store. And let's see, let's go on here. He came to a place in his life where he was adopted by this alder into a firm, which then he became a partner of, as you can see, Adler and Sullivan. It should be Adler, I'm sorry, Adler and Sullivan. And this is where Sullivan became known for his designs. It seems as though he was the one of the two who created these noteworthy designs, which have lived on in many different ways. This auditorium building, as you can see, consists of some of the same elements as we've already seen. However, and this takes us back to the influence of H. Richardson on Sullivan. In the central core of the building, the central facade, you see columns which traverse 3 stories. This is a classicizing quotation, classicizing quotation, which will become quite unusual as we see the development of skyscrapers subsequently, but clearly it has to do with the influence, as I said, of Richardson's interest in well, not just Romanesque, but classical forms. Also, on the ground floor, I want you to note the arches, the substantial arches, which invite the viewer into or the user into this building. Sullivan became known for his arches, and you'll see a particularly fine one coming up in a bit. Now, this building, interestingly was not torn down. It became, in about 1944-45, the Roosevelt University, as you see here. And that small image is of the 450-person auditorium that was part of the initial design of this building. It was a multi-purpose building. It's called the Auditorium Building because of this auditorium, and then other uses yet above it. Okay, so rather unique, and perhaps that's why it wasn't torn down, as many of these buildings were. Adler and Sullivan's Wainwright Building in St. Louis is an example of, you could say, a more defined architectural expression of the high-rise. You can see that the steel construction has been faced, that's terracotta, and something else besides these magnificent arches that Sullivan will become famous for are the details, Celtic and also Art Deco details that we see between windows. And you can see some of that here. I have a close-up in a moment, and also on the very upper story. Sullivan, although he coined the sentence and becomes an adage, form follows function, nevertheless did not deny his architecture a certain decorative and flamboyant touch. You could even say flair, as we'll see in another example, actually, the last of his structures I have to show you. But look at this, and I'm sorry it's not in color, but of course it's the same rich terracotta. And this is the Art Deco flamboyant decoration of the last story, and you can see some of the columns there as well. And apparently it was his atelier, his students, who designed these for the master to include in his architecture. The Chicago Stock Exchange, which unfortunately, as you can see, was also demolished, but rather late. I want you to consider, in looking at the design from street to the very top portion to the cornice, if that doesn't remind you somewhat of Baron Legeni's home insurance building. It's not altogether the same, but when I saw these two buildings, one after the other, of course, I said, there is no doubt that Sullivan learned a good deal from Le Baron Jenny. And here, although Sullivan had many innovations and was known for many innovations, a very similar look to them. And here's a contemporary drawing of the building so you can see it in its greater width and also height. And I want you to notice the arch there to the left. That's the main entranceway into this building. Here, instead of 3, we have 1. This building was so highly thought of in its pieces and parts that when it was dissolved and demolished in 72, the Art Institute of Chicago, among some other concerns, took portions of this building for their own. And before we get there, I thought you might enjoy these drawings contemporary with the initial building of the structure to illustrate. This is from Harper's Weekly, how popular it was. But here is that arch. And this was procured by the Museum of Fine Arts, and it's out to be seen on the property there if you're ever in the neighborhood. And you see the date, 1893. When it was begun, it was actually finished in 1889. I'm sorry, it's 1893, I'm sorry. Begun in 1889, finished in 1893. And some of the Celtic decoration that was Sullivan's own inspiration. So more than just an architect, but a decorative artist too, it seems. Another building by this firm, Adler and Sullivan, Guarantee Building in Buffalo, New York, as you can see. And it is replete with a similar kind of decoration treatment from the street level to the top. Let me see. Here's one of the designs, one of the capitals. And if you look closely between the triangles, elaborate triangles, you see GB, Guarantee Building, apparently on every one of these capitals. How intricate, how time-consuming that kind of decorative, extraneous work had to have been. So let's go back to the full Monty here for a moment. But again, to get back to, well, what is a skyscraper? Here we have something that is slim, elegant, and takes you into the sky. Here's another detail, one of the lights. So is elegant and slim, so to speak, and no nonsense, as is the building. The decoration is just the opposite and complements the building so beautifully. Now, the next to last building by Sullivan I have to show you is this department store in Chicago, in the Loop. If you're familiar with Chicago at all, that means it's in the old portion of Chicago. I have shopped here a number of times, long years ago. And it's an exquisite building, different in some important respects from what we've just seen. For instance, the exterior is white. I'm not sure, I'm sorry, of the material, but you can see that the windows are tripartite, which is a Chicago kind of window, I learned. And you can also see that the end that we're looking at is rounded, curved. The reason for this is that is the entryway into the department store, the main entryway, I should say, into the department store, which I'll show you in a moment. So thinking about form follows function. Here is Sullivan designing a type of building that he has never been asked to design. The other buildings basically are office buildings. This is a building that needs to attract customers. And so the large windows and this exquisite entryway. And here you have it. It could not be more elaborate. Decorated with his Art Nouveau slash Celtic design work initiated by his atelier. And here, of course, he's using bronze. No, I think it's iron, actually. I'm sorry, metal, in contrast with the building materials that you can see on the exterior of the Carson Pirie Scott department store. We have someone coming in. Okay. And the last building of Sullivan's I wanted to show you is this, because I found it particularly stripped down and perhaps entering into a new phase of the construction of tall, high-rise buildings. The Van Allen building, as you can see, it's a contemporary photograph, so it's still standing. And it's very plain, as you can see. And it's faced with, it looks like it's some kind of light stone. And each of those slender columns is decorated with the floral design, and again, the VA, that is the initials of the name of the building. But this is where he went. This is where he ended, basically, in 1914 in Iowa. Any questions? Okay, how are we?
Hey, Ellen.
Hi.
This is Nan.
Hi, Nan.
I put a question in the chat and it says, I always think that the Chicago Stock Exchange means it was related to finance and markets and money, but it looked like it was not that. Was it a hotel? Because the picture inside there that you just showed, was it a finance building? Was it where
Oh,
markets
no, wait
were?
a minute. Ho, ho. No. The auditorium building,
Mhm.
that's the interior interior shot of that building, Nan.
Yep.
But I don't have an interior of the stock exchange.
That one right there.
Oh, I see. Oh, well, oh, because I'm assuming that, it's a lobby where people would gather.
Yep.
Yeah, with offices upstairs.
Okay.
Yeah,
Got
yeah.
it.
Oh,
So
okay,
was the
I see.
so was the stock exchange in Chicago, right?
Yes, as
Okay.
far as I know.
Thanks. Is it still standing?
This building is not.
Oh, okay. All right. Thank you.
No, you're welcome. Just want to make sure that I answered you correctly. Yeah, as it went down in 1972. And I mean, I don't know if another was built in its place, Nancy. I just didn't go that far. So,
No worries.
okay, good. Okay. And now to Frank Lloyd Wright. He was Sullivan's protege for 7 years, beginning in 1887, when Sullivan was at the height of his fame and power. And kind of moving ahead here, they would sever their ties in 1894 because Wright, who clearly was not given enough to do as Sullivan's protege, moonlighted on the side and designed and had houses built on his own. And Sullivan was not very happy about that, although, as a couple of my sources say, Wright still called Sullivan his beloved master, Liebermeister, if I'm saying that German somewhat correctly. This has nothing to do with Wright's architectural heritage, but this is where he lived for a time in Oak Park, Illinois. And you might notice that the architecture is not unrelated to H.H. Richardsonian Romanesque. Wright was influenced by that aspect of Richardson's work early on. And that is even more evident in this house that Wright designed fairly early on. And it has a kind of Queen Anne style to it, which is a Romanesque style. But notice the overhang on the right, and then the continuous band of windows, which encircle in, halfway the cylinder on the second floor. This has nothing to do with the influence of the former architect on Wright, but on Wright's own aesthetic, as we will see. So we're beginning here at this very early stage to see what will develop into a very significant series of architectural pieces. And this coming next, the Winslow House, it is, in fact, his first independent commission after he was let go by Sullivan. And notice that the house is a very simple two-story edifice with an open carport. Carports were not the usual item at this time. I don't know if Wright invented them, but he used them as other architects did not. In any event, so low-lying, and this will lead to what is known as his prairie-style home. We're not there yet. He moved from that rather modest dwelling in '98 to this home, which also became a studio. I've been there. It's just fabulous. Anyway, so needn't talk about this, but this is where he called home for quite a long time. This is the first of his prairie houses. And this house is defined as a prairie house because, as with the home we just saw that he designed, the Winslow House, the emphasis is on horizontals. And here we have multiple overhangs and a porch, which wraps around from the front to the rear. And we'll see another view of that. And you can see a continuous use of windows. And I don't know what it is exactly. I think it's a breakfast room that we're looking at here that sticks out at the right. And then another row of windows that allow the house to identify and be contiguous with its site. And this was one of the keys of his prairie homes, that the house was not just plunked down on a piece of property, but was designed in order to take advantage of the property. And of course, we're talking about Chicago here and contiguous areas, and the land's flat. Therefore, these designs adhere to the flatness, the wonderful flatness of this Midwest landscape. His plans were what we probably all are so very used to. You may find this boring, but he was the first architect to connect room to room through space which flows from one to the next. Now let's look at that covered porch, and we'll see it in a minute from the outside. So you walk in from the garden entrance, as you can see on the left, into the living room. And then if you want to go any farther, you have to traverse the foyer, which then leads to the dining room, and vice versa, and the dining room to the breakfast room, which those are the windows that we were looking for. There is no impediment, no doors, as you can see, other than a door into the pantry and the kitchen, of course, because they need to be private. But the living spaces are such that they flow from one to the next. And the bedrooms are somewhat separate, but that's to be expected. But there are balconies. That's what those dotted lines are telling us. Out from a couple of them anyway, so that there is a relationship of the second floor and these rooms to the exterior, to the site. And here's a good view of the entranceway. We were just a little to the right in the first view. And so you can see the windows that surround the breakfast room, actually, and the other windows. And he designed the windows, the panes of the windows, as we'll see in another example. And here we are around to the other side, nearly to the underside. I don't have a back view of the work, but you can see how you move around exteriorly. As you move around, you flow around through the interior of this house. The Roby house is, I would consider, as many do, the masterpiece of his prairie houses. And you can see here that it is also low-lying. There are other levels that we did not see in the Thomas house. A lower level here that you see a planter resting upon. And then you could say kind of a porch level, which is the living room, dining room area, and then the upper level where the bedrooms are. But look at the cantilevered roofs and the flow of the architecture itself, which is helped by the differentiation in the materials from brick to concrete to, I'm not sure what the black substance is, maybe it's just wood that's painted black, but we are given this understanding of the horizontality of this work and its relationship to the land. Now, it was going to be done away with, but it was taken in hand and eventually was purchased by the University of Chicago. Let me quote something from Wright, which he said about the Roby House. He said that it's an example of architecture of democracy in which free individuals move within a free space, a non-symmetrical design, which we saw in the Thomas House, interacting spatially with its natural surroundings. And further, it has a bold, wandering, asymmetrical plan with intricately joined open and closed spaces grouped freely around a great central fireplace. And this grouping around, spaces around a fireplace, becomes one of the major components of his prairie homes. And here's a near contemporary view of the house, and you can see how large it is and how it conforms to the flatness of the prairie. And here's the plan. Now, we did not see a fireplace in the former house, in the Thomas house, but there it is between the living and dining rooms. And again, there's the flow of space. It's not impeded by the fireplace by any means. And the staircase is contiguous with the fireplace, so that it's not a bother either in terms of going up and down, traversing the stories of this great building. It's now used as an administrative building by Chicago. And here are some views. I don't know if these are helpful necessarily, but you can see from every point of view the roofs, which are overhanging, cantilevered, and the horizontality of the whole. And another good shot. And from the opposite end, here we are. Now you can see how you actually get in. It's not obvious. It's not a red door on the front of your building, in front of your house. And a couple of views from inside. This is quite an old photograph, as you probably gather. He designed the furniture, and he designed, you'll see in a minute, as I was saying, the glass work. This is all his design, which goes along with the house, of course, and its geometric makeup. And I particularly like this because these are windows which, as you can see, are placed at an angle, and this is the view that you would have from the dining room. Unity Temple was one of his early commercial buildings, although I don't know that you should call it a commercial building. Shame on me. He was a Unitarian, and when his Unitarian church burned to the ground, he was called upon to put together a design for the new church. And there was a lot of controversy over it, a lot of arguing and so forth, but eventually Wright got his way. And it's another example of the prairie style. You can see that the exterior is simple. It doesn't necessarily present itself as prevailing horizontal building, but the overhangs emphasize that. And here's another view where you see some of the columns and some of the overhangs again Very simple, as you can see, block-like. Well, this reminds me of a story that Frank Lloyd Wright told in his maturity. When he was a little kid, he was given a set of blocks, building blocks. And according to him, this is actually recorded in a book that he wrote. These made an enormous impression upon him as he played with them, block upon block, figuring out what best went where on what, and so forth. And if you believe him and you think about that, that's what we see here, at least in this detail of Unity Temple. The plan is very unusual, as you can see, in that it is not a basilican plan church. You don't enter and then walk down an aisle to the altar by any means. And it's a plan that was influenced by the number of years that he spent, trying to think, 5 or 6 years that he spent in Japan. He considered himself a Japanophile. And the plan of a temple that he studied, basically, he copied here. I could not find a slide of it, I'm sorry to say. But that's what we have here. The simplicity of it, the clarity of it, came from abroad. And here is the auditorium, as it's called, with the pipes for the pipe organ, and all, as you can see, in terms of the decoration, has to do with squares, rectangles, very simple shapes in simple complementary colors. And you look into the ceiling, to the balconies up above, extra space for worshipers, and then the lights over the well, we call it the vestibule, but the viewing place in front of the altar. All his design, of course, and all cubic and very geometric. Now, we have very little time left, but let me see what I can squeeze in here. He left his wife in 1910, 1911, and he went to Europe with this woman by the name of Mama Bothwick. Anyway, they came back in a little later, and in 1911 to 12, he built on this land that he asked his mother to bequeath to him, so near where he grew up, in Green Spring, Wisconsin, so that he could build this place where he and Mama and her children could live. And it's called, as you can see, Taliesin. It's called Taliesin East later on, but that's what I wrote anyway. He was very happy there, apparently, with her. And he left for a time in 1914. And when he was gone, on August 14th of 1914, an angry, certainly disgruntled member of his staff living here took an axe and killed 7 people, including Mama and her 2 children, 4 others. He subsequently was caught. He tried to kill himself, but he didn't succeed, unfortunately, may I say. And this is what the compound looked like And here's the courtyard, and here's the courtyard after the murders, and then he set fire to the whole. Well, this clearly set Wright back a bit. But he continued to work on his architectural designs, and I will leave you with this. Some of you might know this house. It is under restoration, as I understand it, and it's not terribly far from where we all are. And it is one of his prairie style homes. So let me see. It also includes features that will become prominent in the next style of home he will develop called Usonian, which he developed after the downfall of the market in 1939, because their homes are much less expensive. But in any event, here we have this home, prairie style, as you can see, conforming to the land, built out of less expensive materials, which is one of the aspects of his Usonian homes. And here's another nice view of it. And the spacious living room, an old slide, but nevertheless, you see it perhaps a little bit better as it was originally. And then here's a modern photograph of someone who's taking pictures so it can be recorded and restored. Okay? Any questions?
Yeah, you can unmute yourself, ask any questions. You can put stuff into chat if you want, and we'll do the questions that way as well. Does anybody have any specific questions?
I'll just go through the slides. You can see them. This is what he built in Scottsdale to create a place for students to learn architecture. And then there's Falling Water, of course, his masterpiece, along with
Wow.
the Guggenheim Museum. So there we be.
I did Google something. They did do another building on the Chicago Stock Exchange site
Oh,
where it was torn down. It's now like I think it said a 39-story office building.
oh boy.
So anyway.
Well, thank you, Marty.
Wait,
Appreciate that.
Ellen, when
Yeah.
was Taliesin restored? Because you can visit it now.
Well, I think because it was such an important place for Wright, frankly. And it's where with the next woman whom he married, because his wife, longstanding wife, finally divorced him. It's where they established a fellowship, say a kind of school for students interested in architecture. So maybe that's why, and it's and the building of Taliesin West was a way, and that's where he ends up at the end of his life, but a way to, as I understand it, unite the two parts of the country in terms of architecture and education. That's all I know.
Well, is Taliesin West, was that not burned?
No.
No.
Oh, sorry, going the wrong way. We
Yeah,
can't
because
get these
I did
words.
visit that. It's fascinating.
Oh, I bet it is. No, because this was built a good deal later.
Oh, I see. That's in Arizona. Yeah.
Yeah,
No,
yeah.
I didn't visit that one. I visited the one in Wisconsin.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Well, good for you. Huh.
Ellen, this is Blaine and Gretchen Betts.
Hi.
Hi. We were wondering about the weatherability of Wright's homes.
I'm sorry,
You know,
Blaine,
I heard that
I can't hear you.
I was wondering about
Oh.
how Mr. Wright's homes weathered the climate in which they were built. You know, I heard that notoriously, the house in Marquette that John Lautner, you know, actually, you know, did a lot of the work on, um, you know, leaked, and that the roof lines were not conducive for snowfall. Did you ever hear anything about that?
I read a little bit about that, that he's known for his leaky roofs.
Hmm.
Yeah, and if we go back, well, because I didn't introduce falling water to you, but you're probably all familiar with it anyway. But one of the balconies, here we go. I'm not sure which one it was, but one of them has begun to sag rather dramatically. And interestingly enough, when the house was under construction, the fellow who was the um, he was in charge of the construction. He added additional steel, although Wright did not want it because he didn't think that those overhangs, because they're concrete, would stand up, you know, eventually to the pressure on them. And he was right.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah, so Wright didn't know.
We've only been in one of the Wright homes, and that's I think it's called the Meyer May. I'm not sure what it's in Grand Rapids.
Oh,
And
really?
we were just struck. It's now owned by Steelcase Corporation,
Oh,
and it's
okay.
open to the public. It's in the historic Heritage Hill area there of uh, Grand Rapids. But we were just struck by the entranceway, which was almost hidden from view. I mean, you know, you can't. It doesn't have a nice big front Edwardian door like the old times, you know.
Precisely.
Uh, and so you get into that relatively small entrance, and then I guess it's compression and expansion. And was that a signature of his other homes as well?
Well, I showed you, am I going the right way? Let me see.
You
Um,
did. You saw that floor plan, yes.
yeah, if we go back, oh, here we go, to the Roby house. I mean, that's the entrance into the house. Not at all
Ah,
obvious.
yeah.
Yeah, and then let me go forward to Falling Water. Um, Here we go. And this is the way you go around and then in, which is, you know, it's circuitous. Yeah, yeah.
Yes.
Very private.
It's a marvelous experience being in one of those homes and having that feeling of expansion when you step out of the small entrance. It's a really exciting feeling.
Yeah, no, they're beautiful. And here at Falling Water, he even built in this step down into the pool,
Yeah.
part of the waterfall, so you could become part of the water, the
Wow.
flowing water. Yeah, which is very
Hmm.
private. Yeah.
It must have been something being a client of Mr. Wright's because he insisted on a lot of times, you know, furnishing even the artwork and insisting on where the artwork would be hung. It didn't give his clients a lot of freedom in terms of choosing their own decor.
I'm
Hmm.
sure that's true, and I think this photograph of the living room of Falling Water is, you know, it's contemporary, but I think it's fairly true to what Wright would have designed for these people. This was not a home to be lived in year round. This was a vacation home, but you can see that the chairs, the couches are four square, and so on and so forth. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I was struck you had that beautiful picture of Abby Beecher Roberts' home, and it showed the Japanese screen. That was I guess, originally there when he insisted that that be the decor. And she didn't like it and put her in her own camp furniture, and I think had the screen removed.
Huh, interesting. Oh, dear.
So,
Well, thank you, Blaine, very much. Where are we?
can one drive past the Abbey Beecher Roberts house, or
Yes, you can. And quite,
where is it?
it's on County Road 492.
492. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and I meant to do that, and I just got too involved here to do that. But yes, you can. I think you can't get too terribly close to it, as I
Yeah.
understand, but
Yeah.
you can drive by. Yeah, County Road 492. Yeah,
Thank you.
sure.
Ellen, this is Patrick
Hi.
Stanley in Philadelphia. Can you
Hi.
hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I've seen a number of the Wright houses here in Pennsylvania and in Buffalo. And also I spent 2 days in Taliesin West.
Oh,
And
boy.
as I was looking at the various images that you presented, I was trying to think of other art forms that maybe might have influenced Wright. I was thinking of music, where you might have
Mm.
a certain instruments playing along, and above them other instruments playing along too, and then certain instruments trying to unite the various levels. Was there any such musician or school of music that influenced Wright? I was just wondering that.
I read nothing about his relationship to music, but that makes perfect sense to me. It really does. Yeah. But
I was
no,
trying
I
to
mean,
think
there's
of,
no indication that he was a musician himself, for instance.
yeah.
Oh, that's lovely.
Well, the eye is drawn from one end of a building to another, and
Yes.
you want to go back and forth, and then you're drawn up, and then there's a chimney that unites them, or
Yeah.
some type of tower, and then there's filigree that would provide a lighter note. I know it just struck me, but
Oh, that's wonderful.
yeah,
You should write a little piece on that.
Mhm.
You
I give you the permission to do that in my name.
Oh, my.
Ah.
That's delightful. What a great observation. Yeah, are you a musician yourself?
I sing out of tune. My favorite instrument is the radio.
Oh, golly. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Does anybody have any final comments? We're gonna have to close it down, unfortunately.
But just thank you so much. So interesting as usual.
Well,
Yeah.
thank you ever so much yourself.
And
Appreciate
and Ellen will be back in December, I think is the next time that we'll have her on. I'm not sure what her subject matter is going to be yet. We still have to meet and have a few beers and talk about that. Yeah, so Ellen will be back in December. We always put the artists and their art and on like the third Tuesday of the month. So the third Tuesday in December would be, I will just let you know this so you can write it on your calendars. So that would be December 16th. December 16th will be the next one.
Well, that's symmetrical, isn't it?
That is.
Tuesday.
Good.
Well, and it's
Yeah.
2 months away, or not 2 months, September,
Yeah.
October.
Ellen, we really appreciate
It's
this.
about,
Thank you.
yeah, it's
Oh,
about,
you're welcome. Thank you for staying with me.
yeah.
Wonderful.
Absolutely. Wonderful. Thank you all for coming. And of course, thank you, Ellen, for sharing your knowledge, expertise, and everything with us. This is always one of my favorite events of the
Thank the
month.
architects.
All right. Well, we'll see you all, guys. I'm going to stop recording now. Here we go. There we go.